Namaste to you and also to Bala Skandan ji.
Thank you.
Am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Yes, yes.
So Bala Skandan ji is in the finance field.
Yes.
But more than that, he is known in New York as someone who not only plays a wonderful Mridangam, he teaches Mridangam, he also teaches violin, and that he has been doing for over 2 decades. So, and I've seen his hair change their color,
Yes.
same as mine. So we have been here in New York for such a long time. How was it for you to pick up the Indian classical music tradition away from India, or it came with you from India?
Well, I was born in Sri Lanka, so
Okay.
yes, so I learned there, and then I also studied in India as well by traveling there. So I brought all of that with me. But then, even when I'm here, I was still visiting my gurus from North America. So.
Playing solo or playing as accompanist Mridangam, how is the difference for you as an artist?
I think playing solo is fun, but accompanying is even more fun. Yeah, because there's a lot of when you have good chemistry with the other musicians, it's basically some form of communication. So it's almost like having a chat and all the subtleties of music and expressions and so on.
So it is just impromptu, it evolves as you play, or you sort of rehearse and sort of fine tune by verbally communicating before performing together.
A big part of Indian classical music performance is improvised, and it's often that you play concerts and you only meet them on the stage. So maybe you haven't even met them in your life before, and so it's usually a new experience. But that's how we get trained. We get trained to perform almost like a spur of the moment.
Mridangam is a unique instrument. It's not dolak, it's not tabla, it's percussion. But what makes you take more interest in Mridangam than the other percussion oriented instruments?
I think that's more to do with the regional cultural background. So traditionally, Mridangam is very common in the southern part of India and also in Sri Lanka as well, whereas the tabla is much more common further up north. So you would find that if you're growing up in a certain region, you're going to pick up an instrument that's native to that region.
And when you And when you were exposed to the other instruments and sound-wise, what is it that you would say is unique feature of Mridangam that makes you sustain your love for this?
I think, but even the other instrumentalists would say the mridangam has a very kind of earthy, like a really grounded sound to it. So it has a kind of more majestic feel to that instrument, and I guess that's what's attractive about that instrument.
You have played with some of the very well-known artists of our times. You have been trained by illustrious maestros in this field. Let us learn about Maniji and any other teacher who has influenced you greatly.
I mean, Karukuri Mani sir was a unique musician. As everybody knows, he created his own Bani, and then he's really known for his very rigorous practice when he was younger, and I think what he also did was that he brought the instrument to the center stage. So he created a group where the mridangam became the main instrument rather than a supporting instrument. So he gave that credibility to that instrument, and only through his amazing playing that he was able to do it. So I was very privileged to learn from him. from him.
And talk to me about memorable concerts where you performed with someone who you looked up to while listening to their music.
Well, I mean, I have to say that I actually did play with Manisha once, and that was probably the most memorable, but also one of the most nerve-wracking events as well at the same time. So you're having so much fun doing it, but you're also, it's a nerve-wracking event.
So the word nerve-wracking makes me ask you one, as a musician you have to be very very alert. So there is a sense of alertness in your mind, and at the same time there is the joy, and there is this sense of flowing with the music, which requires certain type of spontaneity, and being present without bothering about anything, having a sense of abandon, as they say. So you probably figured out a way to find a balance between these two sides.
Not really. I think it is a balance, but to achieve that balance, I don't think there is a scientific formula. So every situation is different. I'd be lying if I said somehow I got it all figured out, but it's something that you're always trying to achieve, because you do have to have a little bit of nervousness. A lot of musicians would tell you that you have to have some butterflies in your stomach when you're performing. If you don't, then the alertness won't come. At the same time, you also have to be fairly relaxed to play good music. So it is a balance. And
Yeah. So, and lastly, we are fortunate to have enjoyed your Mridangam with a unique new instrument, which is called Navtal.
Navtar,
Navtal, and by Vishnu ji.
correct.
So, how was the experience of? I mean, every experience is new, but even when the instrument itself is new, then it adds an additional layer of newness. So talk to me about it.
Well, I mean, I've actually, since I moved to New York, I've actually worked with a lot of, musicians from different genre, different instrumentation, and so on. So I'm kind of exposed to instruments that are non-traditional from an Indian classical perspective. And then Vishnu himself, as a musician, I mean, I've known Vishnu since he was much younger, because I know his parents. And his father is an amazing vocalist, and his mother is a dancer. So I've known him.
So is your wife.
Yes, and so I've known Vishnu. So personally, I'm very fond of him, and so it's fun to play with. And the instrument is. I don't. I mean, it's to me it sounds a bit like, if someone's playing mandolin or chitravina, but then it has some additional flavor to it, and it's actually wonderful. So I like that fullness of that instrument.
So finally, a very cliched question. Maybe 20 years ago, also we were thinking about the future of music, especially Indian classical music, whether youngsters are taking interest in it or not. And with the onslaught of this social media and even less sort of a patience. In generally speaking among people, and whereas with classical music we associate that musician should have a sense of calmness and patience, and so should be the audience. So how it is in your sort of observation, how do you feel about it?
Well, it's definitely challenging, but the thing is, the society itself has changed quite significantly, right? So you face it everywhere. It's not just in music. I still sort of try and keep some kind of a balance, especially when I'm teaching. So to make sure that, because I think this type of music, you really need to spend a lot of time and have a lot of focus, which is the complete opposite to what's happening in social media, which everything is like 30 seconds situation. So you're kind of fighting it in a way. But at the same time, you have to recognize that's the reality of today. So.
In the field of finance, while you work, there is an element of mathematics, and in music also there is an element of mathematics. So the mathematics of music, how it has helped you in your profession, or vice versa?
I don't really know. I mean, I think this more anecdotal than any sort of. I think there are people who say that the creativity that happens, especially with Indian classical music, helps in certain fields of finance where you have to find solutions in a very chaotic situation. So there is an element of that. And I think mathematics and music, they go together, and so I think the math and the music, they kind of help each other in some ways. So that probably has some knock-on effect into what I do in finance. But they're still kind of very different fields, though. So I don't know if there's any sort of scientific studies that be done.
Absolutely. And as we conclude, I am tempted to share with our viewers that he has sustained the flow of art form with his wife, who has also pursued her love for dancing. So, being artists, both of you going towards the lighter lane also, was it easy to maintain harmony, or because both artists maybe have some element of ego or their own demands, which comes from the flow of art? How would you say it worked out so far?
I think it's worked out okay. I mean, I think you always have challenges in every relationship, but I think it's been, I would say, on balance, it's helpful. Sonali is very supportive in terms of my music career, to the extent that she actually even encouraged me to quit finance and become a musician a few times in the past. So I think that way it's helpful, and she's obviously a full-time dancer. So I think we've kind of supported each other in our art fields. And I think if you're with someone who is not into it, not, let's say you're with someone who's not into music and not into arts, I think it might be challenging for them when you're spending so much time with your instruments, with your students, and with your fellow musicians and whatever, because for them there's no common area. So that I guess that's the way I would put it.
So I thank Bala Skandanji, and I also remember many years ago I interviewed both of them together. That was especially about togetherness. So thank you, lots of good wishes.
Thank you very much.